Hello, thank you for joining us for the first session in our four-part webinar series. While the series is designed as a connected learning journey, each session also works independently. You'll gain valuable insights whether you watch and engage with one or all four of our sessions. Let me begin by sharing a little background about our work. At the Knowles Teacher Initiative, we believe that great teaching changes lives. Since 1999, we have supported beginning high school math and science teachers who work to improve education for all students. Our Teaching Fellows program helps early career high school math and science teachers build lasting expertise and leadership skills. The Knowles Academy offers professional learning opportunities created and facilitated by teachers, along with tailored services for schools and districts. Together, we are building a strong, connected community of educators. We're excited today to engage with you in your own professional learning by sharing aspects of our work. I'm Jen Mossgrove, the Director of the Teaching Fellows program here at the Knowles Teacher Initiative. This webinar is interactive and designed for you to do independently or with a small group. Throughout the webinar, I will note places that you can pause the video to engage in the activities before continuing. All of the materials you will need can be found by using the QR codes that will be on the slides or by navigating to our resources page on our website. If you're seeing this video on our YouTube page, the link to the resources will also be in the video description. I want to begin with a quote. Every system is perfectly designed to achieve exactly the results it gets. Take a moment to silently reflect on this statement and think about what it might mean in your professional context. Think about the outcomes that your system is producing and the outcomes that you want it to produce. Do you think this quote is accurate? Is it true that the way our professional system is primed will continuously produce the same outcome if nothing changes about the system fundamentally? There are lots of ways that our classrooms are impacted by parts of the broader system, and how what happens in our classroom can also impact out into that system. There's a cycle we go through of understanding the influence and then impacting back out. We're going to focus today, though, on a smaller system, your school community, but the idea still holds. There are interconnected sets of elements within the school that are organized in a way to achieve a purpose or to produce a pattern of behavior. We all know that schools are complex systems, and sometimes making change can feel daunting. Our goal today is to introduce a tool that can help you find ways to make change. This is a tool that we have used for many years with our teachers and have seen it work at both big and small scale changes. It also helps make this feel more approachable and sustainable. Today, you will engage with the Activity System Framework, or ASF, to map out a system from your own context, such as a math department, a grade level team, a science PLC, and you'll identify leverage points for change. Together, we will explore how ASF can be used to initiate conversations, disrupt exclusionary practices, and design innovations that promote more equitable instruction. ASF supports a systems-level perspective, allowing us to analyze how roles, norms, goals, tools, and community dynamics all interact to shape teaching and learning. Grounded in an equity-focused practice, ASF makes visible the ways that power and privilege influence instruction in school communities. You will develop both an understanding of ASF as a tool and also an actionable step that you can take away to impact your own system in your own context. To achieve this goal, we'll first examine a story from one of our teaching fellows. Then we'll use that work to understand the ASF. And finally, we have support for you to apply the ASF to your own context, which could include things such as supporting colleagues in inquiry, revising curriculum to expand access, or amplifying student voices or family voices, and many, many more ideas. One thing that I do want to highlight here, when we try to understand what's going on in our school systems, here, school is a placeholder for a lot of other organizational structures within the school context, such as departments, grade level teams, PLCs. And in this, we are always looking through a particular lens. And that lens is shaped by our roles and responsibilities, our identities, and our experiences. And it determines often what we notice and how we interpret it. Your colleagues also have their own lenses, which may or may not overlap with yours, but either way will reveal different parts of what's going on in the school system. No single lens, including your own, shows the full picture. There are always blind spots. That's why we use tools and frameworks such as the ASF and involve others in our work. This is to help us widen our own lenses and bring different perspectives together, building a more complete understanding of our school systems in order to navigate it more effectively. Let's look now at an example from Ashley, a teacher that we have worked with. She is trying to make a change in her school. We'll use Ashley's story to help us learn about the activity system framework. But for now, we want you first to just make sense of the story on your own. We suggest that now you pause the video to individually read her story. You can access her story by using the QR code or going to our resources page on the website. Please pause the video now. Welcome back. Now that you've had a chance to read Ashley's experience, we have a few questions for you to reflect on. We will share these on the next slide, or you can also download the Unpacking Ashley's Story worksheet by using the QR code on the next slide, or again, going to our resources page on our website. We recommend that you complete the first set of questions individually. Then, if you are working with a small group, take about 5 minutes or so to discuss the group discussion questions. Or if you're on your own, just continue that reflection on your own. Please pause the video now. Welcome back. As you know, and even saw in Ashley's story, schools are incredibly complex systems. We are now going to introduce the Activity System Framework, or the ASF. You can access this by clicking on the QR code. The ASF is helpful because it captures some of that complexity and simplifies it by bringing a few key elements into focus. This framework can help make sense of what's going on in your community and help you focus your efforts for making change. Later, you will choose one of these points in your system to focus on as you consider how you can work to make change for the better. The ASF can help you diagnose your system, select the leverage point, and anticipate potential outcomes. The questions that you answered with Ashley's story are the elements of the ASF, and we're going to unpack those elements together now. The worksheet includes some questions that help us identify and understand what characterizes each element. And there are a lot here, but they are not exhaustive. There could be infinitely more questions, but I only included a few that I thought would give you a firm grounding to understand and determine that element of your particular system. But right now, we're only going to pay attention to the describe and the systems of power and professional agency sections. We'll look at the interactions questions later in the webinar. Let's start with members. This element is about the participants, the people directly involved in the situation. In one context, a person or a group could be considered a member. In another context, that person or group could be considered a community. So to help us describe the members, we think about who are the people doing the work? Who am I? Who are the others who are actively involved in contributing? Here we also ask questions about identity and status, such as, are they a new teacher or a veteran teacher? Are they white or a teacher of color, etc.? Next, for community, this identifies the larger social and institutional and policy context that defines the system. Members are typically a subset of this community. This includes people or groups that are impacted by the work and action of the members. Here we ask questions about a community's expectations, norms, values, or mandates that influence this system's activity. Next is the focus. This is about the intended or shared purpose of the goal of our work. Here we ask questions about what the focus is, what everyone understands and agrees, and whether we are actually working toward it. What do people think they are doing? Next, we have roles. This is really about the division of labor, kind of who does what. Pay close attention to how power and work is distributed. Think about explicit roles, such as timekeeper or facilitator, and implicit roles, such as clarifier, historian, practical suggestion person. Who has the decision-making power? Next, we look at norms. We are familiar with this idea, but here we are talking about explicit and implicit norms that govern our interactions, how we work together. Remember that all communities have unnamed norms, even if they do not have names. Consider the behavior you see and how the norms shape the behavior. Do these behaviors align or not with the work? Next, we look at tools and resources, which are sometimes also called mediating artifacts. Resources that are physical, intellectual, digital, and human that we use to accomplish our work. What are the assumptions that are embedded in these tools about students, about teachers, about learning? Finally, we look at the outcome, which is what happens as a result of the system. That's why it sits outside of that triangle there. An important distinction here is the outcome does not equal the focus. The focus is the intended purpose. The outcome is the actual result of how the system operates. Up until now, you've each identified the different parts of the activity system in Ashley's story: the members, the community, the focus, the roles, the norms, the tools, and the outcomes. If you need to, pause the video here to go back and look at those. Here's the thing though, in real life, these elements don't sit separately. They're in constant relationship with each other. What happens in one part of the system often shapes or is shaped by another part. That's what a system is, an interconnected set of elements that are organized in some kind of way to achieve something, the outcome. And recognizing those relationships is an integral part of systems thinking. Let's think back to Ashley's experience. The community's culture, a school where compliance and control were emphasized, directly shaped how the members or the teachers interacted. Most colleagues kept their doors closed because that was the safest way to survive in the system. When Ashley shifted the norms toward professional growth and collaboration, redefining it as safe and learning focused, this opened up a space for a different focus, which made it possible to use different tools, classroom observations, and reflective conversations that weren't part of the usual school culture. That new focus also reshaped the roles. Teachers who were once isolated became collaborators, and without a formal title, Ashley stepped into a leadership role by making a bold invitation. These are examples of interconnections, the ways that different elements don't stand alone, but influence one another. Sometimes the relationships between elements in the story are smooth. For example, when members of the observation club came together, the norms they created, openness, curiosity, vulnerability, supported the focus on professional learning. But at other times, the relationships are full of tension. For example, the community's focus on raising test scores and enforcing discipline and compliance, which reflected the community's culture of compliance and fear, contradicted the Observation Club's focus of collaboration and growth. The norms of closed doors and judgmental observations clashed with the new tools of peer observations and feedback. And while some teachers wanted to speak up about systemic problems, the roles enforced by leadership, teacher as compliant implementer, limited their voice. These tensions or contradictions matter because they show us both where the system is stuck and where change is possible. In fact, Ashley's story demonstrates how contradictions between community and members, as well as norms and focus, that being expressed as isolation versus a need for community, became the spark for her leadership. Let's now take a look at those questions on the ASF handout under the interactions with other leverage points. These questions are supports to help you understand how the elements are connected to or influence each other and where there might be some alignment or some friction. Seeing these interconnections is what helps us understand a system, not just as a list of parts, but as a web of relationships. Remember, a key idea is that any system has a particular outcome. So if we want improvement or learning to happen, something needs to change within the system. This is where contradictions and tensions are important because they highlight those areas for change. When we talk about leverage points, we mean where could you act upon the system to spark change? It's an element of that system that, when shifted, creates ripple effects across the rest of the system because it alters those interconnections with the other elements. It is something you can intentionally change in the system that may lead to a change of the outcome of your system. Let's again think about Ashley's story now to think about what leverage points she pushed on. Ashley disrupted those norms of keeping your door closed, don't be vulnerable, observations equal judgment, by introducing new norms of interaction around classroom observation, trust, curiosity, vulnerability, learning from one another. The leverage point was the action that she took, redefining the norms of interaction. But there were also other leverage points that she could have pushed on. She could have introduced a new artifact or practice that would have reshaped the work, such as a peer feedback protocol. This would have been leveraging the tools. If she wanted to focus on the focus leverage, she would have had explicitly and directly challenged the purpose of the system itself, such as standing up at a staff meeting and saying, we are not just here for test scores, we're here for professional growth and deep student learning. There are lots of points to act on, and hopefully by the end of this webinar, you will be able to see one leverage point, which is a point of action for you that can improve your system, to which you have access, and that which seems manageable and safe enough for you. For example, let's say that your analysis indicates that your grade level team meetings are more focused on gossip about students with few plans to support struggling students. The contradiction is that the team's implicit need, venting, stress releasing, belonging, and the ideal goal of supporting students are contradicting each other. So some possible leverage points that you could use in this situation would be to address the focus of this group. You could raise questions about what this group wants their focus to be and encourage them to establish a focus to support struggling students. What do we want these meetings to accomplish for our students? You could introduce a new tool, like a discussion protocol, into a PLC. Maybe you want to revisit norms. Maybe an implicit norm was, we don't challenge each other's comments. You might propose roles such as a timekeeper or a facilitator. You might bring in the community perspectives, maybe a counselor, to get a bigger picture of what's going on with the students and to broaden responsibility for supporting them. Two key ideas that you should take away from this initial look at the activity systems framework are this. First, communities are an interconnected system of elements. Each element can be a lens for an analysis of a community and a focusing point for taking action. And second, every system produces a particular outcome. That outcome is not the same as your focus. Your focus is the intention, and the outcome is the reality. Now that you've had some experience with ASF, let's apply this to your own system. At the start, we shared this quote and gave you a moment to think about the outcomes your system is producing and the outcomes that you want it to produce. What is the outcome of something currently in your school that you want to address and ideally impact or change? Again, take a moment to think about that. There are 4 steps here on the slide, and we also have a handout that, again, you can access that has the prompts under each step that will help you as you apply the ASF to your context. First, use the ASF to just describe your system. Then you can use it in an experimental way by considering what might happen to the outcome if you push on a leverage point. Again, we recommend pausing the video here to spend a few minutes applying the ASF to your context. If you're working with a group, first take time individually and then do a share out within your group. Please pause the video now. Welcome back. Thank you for engaging in that work. Today, we did a deep dive into the tool of the Activity System Framework, or the ASF, and we used it to analyze a specific activity within your school system, hopefully uncovering dynamics and elements that you might not have previously considered. We hope that this tool is helpful to you in better understanding your system and identifying leverage points as a way that you have as a way to create change. We also want to share that, again, there are more opportunities to continue to deepen your learning. First, there are additional webinars that will be a part of this series. Second, if you are or know any early career high school math or science teachers, the application for our 2026 Teaching Fellowship is open through January 6, 2026. If you're viewing this after that date, you can sign up to be alerted for when our next application cycle opens for our 2027 cohort. Finally, you can learn more about other professional learning opportunities that we provide, including online courses and in-person events, by visiting the Knowles Academy page on our website. Again, thank you for engaging in our webinar today, and we wish you the best with the ASF.